Welcome everyone to this week's IPLD sync meeting. It's the 22nd of March 2021, and as every week we go over the stuff that we've worked on in the past week and discuss things that open questions or any agenda items, and also perhaps ask about what other people did in the IPLD world, even if we didn't do it ourselves. So I start with myself. So I'm still working on this JS multi-formats thing in JS IPFS. Currently, it's a bit on a break because, as you might know, there's currently this effort of getting TypeScript types into JS IPFS. And it's close to being finished. And there's currently with UnixFS such a big overlap that it just makes sense for me to pause for half a week and get this merged first, and then I resume my work. And yeah, so I still hope really that this quarter I will finish the UnixFS stuff, that this works with the new multi-formats things. And then for the next quarter, the plan is that I make a plan because I won't be available anymore because I'm on a different team, but have a plan to see also to estimate how big it is, although I'm not a huge fan of time estimates, so I will probably only tell how big it is and not how long it will take. And then see, is it a proper project? Is it something that team takes on, or we'll see. But I hope it will only be a friction of the work that I did. But currently, I also have the feeling that once I finish the UnixFS stuff, I have a good idea, because either everything falls into place, or I find out that it just won't work and will take another year to do. So I hopefully you will reach this point at the end of the quarter. It's still my plan, and I hope to get there. Therefore, I don't have anything else. Next is Eric.
So I have a few things to talk about in UnixFS land potentially, but not a ton else. I confess the amount of Go code that I've been shipping lately has decreased in frequency. A lot of other things to do during the job hours nowadays. So somebody started a project recently for trying to conceptualize some of UnixFS v1 stuff as an ADL in IPLD. And so writing new libraries on that basis so that these key concepts from UnixFS v1 will be accessible as a regular node via the Go IPLD prime libraries. And there is a link to a PR in the notes, which has a roadmap that I'm drafting for where I hope that we could go with that. So there's some code already, but it's for one of the ADLs. And I tried to sketch out how many ADLs I think we could use here. And I seem to have come out with about 4 or 5. So this is something that I would love folks' review on. But the overview is basically there's at least one ADL for making the files in the end of the tree appear as bytes. I think there might actually be 2 of those because we have 2 different layout strategies. I'm not sure if those need totally divergent code paths or not. There's one for seeing uncharted directories, making those look like a map. There's another one for traversing the HAMPs, the sharded form directories. So now we're up to either 3 or 4. And then the most interesting one, or the most outlandish one perhaps, is the last one, which is something that sees through the directories and jumps past the metadata to the next file. And this 4th or 5th, but anyway, final one is the one that I'm hoping will make UnixFS v1 style pathing be essentially IPLD native. So if all those things work according to Dream, it'll be really, really cool. But Yeah, I would love a review on that roadmap and seeing if it makes sense to people. One of the other things that's really interesting here is that one of those ADLs, most of those ADLs will have a reader and a writer side. And that last one won't. It will be always and forever read only, not because it's hard to implement writable, but because it's impossible, because it's skipping some of the information inside. So you can't have a symmetric write. I don't know. I hope that will work out. But if anyone sees issues, please let us know early on in the design process. That's about all I have to report this week.
Thanks. That's really cool because, yeah, so I haven't expected it to be so difficult because, as I mentioned in the other meeting, that I also thought about doing this as my next step in the either JavaScript or Rust to trying to implement UnixFS v1 as ADL, and I haven't thought it would be that difficult, or not that difficult, but so many pieces basically. So I thought it would be easy.
I'm hoping it's not difficult, but it is several pieces. So hopefully the pieces make it easier to figure out internally. I think some of these ADLs will end up using the other ones, like that one that gives you the jump overview, that almost completely uses one of the other ones and then just adds a little bit more wrap around the end. Hopefully.
Cool. Next is Scott. Will, sorry.
No worries. So the group of us was doing a bunch of project planning last week, so we didn't do too much on IPLD front, but we're back on it this week. One of the places where we're hoping to expose this IPLD prime in IPFS and get the benefits of all of this work that we've been doing over the last few weeks is that there is a set of DAG commands that interact with IPLD DAG objects and previously have interacted with DAG format objects, and we want to allow them to interact with IPLD prime DAG objects now instead. And so we're starting to look at how that API gets brought up to prime. Somehow, they made their own little table of multi-codecs in a package in IPFS called core/core DAG. And it defines the codec JSON as DAG JSON and the codec CBOR as DAG CBOR, and also the codec DAG CBOR as DAG CBOR. So this is cool because if we try and switch that over to the canonical multi-codec table, we've now moved from DAG JSON back to JSON, not DAG JSON, which won't do the DAG part of following links and interpreting links. And I think we're just going to make that be a breaking change and say we have a canonical set of names for all of these codecs. Having your own table of 4 of them that you misnamed in a way that we can't support them is sort of a bad look. And so in the release notes, we'll say you should use the canonical names now. But it does bring up the question of, okay, so all of the tests and stuff are based on JSON, and we don't have a JSON codec for prime yet. I submitted a PR to extend the DAG JSON codec to also support the non-DAG variant by just ignoring when there's a link and making that just be normal JSON, which I think is what the decoder needs. I may try and do the same thing for CBOR. So a non-DAG CBOR importer, which I suspect is similarly large amounts of effort or small amounts of effort. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I have one comment because I'm also kind of in favor of having not a central table, but just having like implementations, just defining their identifiers they need, although they of course should be correct. Like, but still, like it's like I think it's like for or like at least I mean for our libraries, I guess it makes sense to use just a canonical table. But I think so. I would say like from if you think about IPLD or bigger things as if you use it from an application, I think it should be the libraries should be built in a way that people could also just define their own constant somewhere and still use the stuff without importing like a full table. So we've kind of like made this change in JavaScript a bit, like that is at least possible. Just a note for in case anyone else implements.
Right. I guess just in terms of the way multi-codec or multi-format is implemented in Go, there is a registry of known codecs and their associated names, which has a list of known codecs and names pre-registered in it. And separately from this, IPLD Prime has a multi-codec registry of known encoders and decoders. And so it's possible for a plugin that gets included with IPFS to define either additional encoder decoders for known codecs, or to define a whole new named codec and associated encoders and decoders. So it is somewhat piecemeal in that sense. But if you're going to use one of the ones that is in that table, you probably should use the same names and codes that are in that table. Right. So the reason that this is weird is because the table defines as sort of that core set of known ones that there is something called DAG JSON that's at OX129, and there's a different one called JSON, not DAG, that is at OX200. And then in the IPFS command line, they have their own little map that says we're going to use the string JSON and map it to an implementation of OX129, not of OX200.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, those should totally match. Cool. Does anyone else has anything for this meeting? Nope. Then it was again a quick one. So thanks everyone for attending, and see you all next week. Goodbye, everyone.